Welcome to the Young, Dumb, and in Love podcast, where we talk about all things marriage.
Our goal is to help equip you to have a marriage that is better than you have ever imagined by sharing real-life experiences, getting into the nitty-gritty, and sharing practical ways you can start today. Let's dive in. You know how sometimes you put something into your phone? Like, you're trying to go to the airport?
Yes.
Let's just say, hypothetically, you're trying to get to the airport on time so you can fly to Disneyland with your family.
Yeah. Is this hypothetical? Because we just did this.
So you put in the airport because lately a lot of our freeways in Arizona have been closed and it's Sunday and they always are
Oh my
closed on
gosh.
Sundays.
Yes. I already know where you're going with this. Hello.
And you put in the Sky Harbor Airport and it should take like 17 minutes.
There's construction.
Yes, because you put in the address and it told you to keep going one way, but you decided, no, it can't possibly be right because why would my phone actually be right? So you go the other way and add a good amount of time.
8 minutes.
No, it was more than 8 minutes then we got to the other entrance and there was traffic and I had to bite my tongue so hard it was bleeding. Okay. I would have looked like a vampire.
Did you bite your tongue though? I don't know if you did.
Trust me.
I don't know.
At first I was like, are you kidding? And you were very defensive.
Not defensive. I'm just saying, babe, I heard you. I heard you the first time. There's no reason to keep saying the exact same thing.
So I was like, go
over.
ahead and drop us off at the front. And if you don't make the flight, honey, then that's on you.
And we sat there for how long until we had to board?
Oh, like maybe 10 minutes.
No.
It was not very long
We
at
all
all.
went to the bathroom. We walked calmly to our gate.
It was about 10 minutes before we
had
started boarding.
like 30 minutes to spare. It was great.
From the time the plane took off.
Yeah. But we were fine.
But we made it.
We were fine.
But you really had a hard time swallowing your pride on that one.
There was no pride on that one. There's no pride.
Okay.
I just was like,
okay.
I heard you the first
totally.
time. There's
See,
nothing I could do about it now.
Yep. I had to just drop it because I wanted to keep going.
Last week when we talked about okay.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
That was it for me.
Yep. But we had a great time.
We did. We went to
If
Disneyland.
you don't know, we're kind of a lot of Disney nerds.
Yeah, we actually have a TikTok just for Disney and a Instagram just for Disney. Mm-hmm. And
we do.
It's great. But that's content just shares from there. That's it. We don't like really share it on our personals.
Yeah,
and
we
stuff.
really don't.
Yeah,
we kind of just try to keep it,
So if you haven't seen it, well, you probably have seen it. You're like, wait,
what?
I need to put 2 and 2 together real quick.
I know. Anyway, and then, so we had a great time. Super fun. All the Disney things. The last day, Julian decides he's got to buy something.
Listen, I've had this money
Birthday money.
It's birthday money that's been sitting in my wallet since my birthday that I got cash. Someone gave me cash and I was like, I want to hold on to this and buy something at Disneyland.
So what did you buy? Honestly, it was funny because we're walking towards the store that I know he's going to buy something from. And I know it's going to be something that's so nerdy that it's like painful that it's that nerdy. Plus, he's 38 years old, so I'm like, okay, this is the one thing I don't really understand.
I'm just buying all those things I never got to buy as a kid.
And I can tell on our walk over there that he is embarrassed. I can tell. I can tell that you're a little bit like, oh, I wish they would all just like go to the bathroom or go get another churro because I really want to be by myself, right?
A little bit.
So we walk into the store.
For sure.
What's the word? I don't remember.
Inconspicuous?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Walks over to the helmets. Yes, helmets for a grown man.
Well, listen.
Hold on. I'm not done. Walks over to the helmets and looks at it, but then kind of pretends like, oh,
I was debating. It was an actual debate.
So then I could tell the vibes. So I left the store to give him his moment and show the people what you got.
Oh, wait. I got to do it properly. Hold on.
I'm like, this is what you're going to spend your birthday money on? I mean, like, I love Disney like the rest, like just any old, more than any old person, but go ahead.
Love Disney. You love Disney a lot.
Okay. But not this much. You're not going to catch me wearing a mask. Nope. I was fine with the inflatable Chewbacca costume that you wore for Halloween. I'm fine with the, how many lightsabers? 3 or 4 lightsabers that he has in his office. This just is a little too much for me.
But listen, you know this.
I'm not in.
I need new batteries. This is pretty epic. So if you're a guy and you're watching this, you're probably thinking, gosh, he is my hero for just doing what he loves and not caring for the most part.
You do you. Anyway, so we had a good time.
Tell him the rest of the story about this, though. Tell him the rest of the story about this.
Okay, I forgot about this part. So, okay, it was on the last day. We're heading to the airport. It obviously is not going to fit into the bag because, one, our bags
I just
are
had
stuffed.
the box. It was like
and
a big box.
big box, like big box.
Yeah.
And it's in a Disneyland bag. So
Yep.
talk about nerd. And so we get it to the airport, and the lady's like, "What's in the box?" Like the one that you like check your bags. And I'm like, "Oh, it's a helmet." She goes, "Oh my gosh!" And so they were
She
making
didn't really care. She just really wanted to know what was in it.
They weren't like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get to security, and there's nobody in line, so he puts it in security, and as it goes through the security machine, it like starts to flip over, like it push, and it gets like
It gets
pushed down.
destroyed.
Yeah. So
And then it gets stuck.
it gets stuck. So
inside
every
the
single
machine.
person behind us, which wasn't very many people, they were so annoyed. You could tell they were so annoyed. I'm like, oh my gosh, people, calm down. They were so annoyed, and I was laughing. So we're all laughing so hard because obviously we know that the thing holding up the entire machine is a mask that my 38-year-old old husband just bought. And then they come out, they're like, "Here you go." And the box
it's
is like
destroyed.
crushed and ripped open. And they're like, "Here, you can do a claim."
Yeah, I'm literally right in the middle of the claim right now.
Yeah.
Because it also broke my Beats.
Yeah.
So sad.
Was it in the same thing?
It was right next to it, yeah. So it smashed it.
So anyway, if you buy a mask in Disneyland, it may not fit through the security machine at the airport. So just beware.
Yeah,
Probably
it was a
could've
great
shipped it
time.
home
I could have shipped it
for
home.
free, probably.
They wouldn't do it for free. It was really weird. That's why I didn't do it. So,
okay.
yeah,
Anyway,
usually they
that's
do.
our Disney story.
Yeah, it was fun.
All
It was a
that
good
to
time.
say,
Live your best life
your best life, I
and
guess.
marry the nerd because he's going to keep your life interesting at the end of the day.
Anyway, our last podcast, we did most Googled questions about marriage.
Yeah.
And so we actually ended up doing last time question 1 through 6.
Yep.
And so we were going to go through the rest of those this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 7 question is, how do I fix my marriage? How do I save my marriage?
I
It's
think
kinda
I
like
put them together.
You put them
'cause it's like
together,
the
yeah.
same
They're
question.
basically the
How
same
do I
thing.
fix my marriage? How do I save?
Yeah, and that's obviously a super broad question because what is your situation? What's going on? Like there's so many variables and things to think about
Yeah.
and to ask and to get down to. And so
Yeah.
obviously we can't answer that question fully here, but what I can say is if you want your marriage saved, if you want to fix your marriage, if something is terribly wrong and you know it, the first thing you need to do is you need to have an open and honest conversation where you get it all out on the table, right? Because in order for you to figure out what's going on, what the actual issue is, you have to lay it all out on the table and talk about it. And then beyond that, you both need to put 100% in. Like you're going to have to go 100% both ways. If it's just one party trying to fix it and the other one doesn't really care, it's not going to get fixed. It's not going to get saved. So you have to be 100% in all the way, both sides. And then when you go that way, it's literally laying everything out on the table, seeing counselors, seeing pastors, people who can help walk you through whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we think it's, the surface things. We think it's your annoying husband who buys helmets from Disneyland and that's what he spends his birthday money on. Like, and that's so annoying, right? It's not really for you, but well, it might be. But that's not the issue. The issue is always and typically something so much deeper, and a lot of times something that happened a long time ago that we haven't been healed from.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, the issue is normally not the issue. Most of the time the issue isn't the issue, right? Like there's something underneath it. I would say definitely getting into counseling as soon as possible. Yeah. Even if just one of you is willing to go, like just start seeing a counselor, a therapist, someone who can kind of like come alongside you and give you practical tools and kind of help you walk through the steps, right? Ideally, both of you would be going to the same counselor, but sometimes one partner isn't ready to go. So it's like just start that process, at least one of you. And then, like you said, the issue isn't the issue. So you're going to start uncovering like what's really going on there. A lot of it is going to be like communication issues, maybe something that, like you said, happened a long time ago. Because, here's the thing, like when you're married, you're still a human being who still has had a past
Yep.
and a present and a future and hurts and hangups and things that have happened.
For sure.
So things are going to come up in your marriage, right? And marriage really just puts a magnifying glass
man.
on the things in our lives that we struggle with.
Yeah.
And how you navigate that is really what makes or breaks your marriage.
So true.
But what I do know is that like it can be saved, you know, like we've talked about this. We have seen marriages come back from what people would say was absolutely
Impossible.
a train wreck. Never
Yeah.
going to come back from that. There's no way, you know, but we do believe like there can be healing, there can be miracles, there
sure.
can be, that can happen. But it's also going to take like a massive amount of humility, which I think is really, really hard for people.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to be humble and
It
decide
is.
like, and to say like, I was wrong, or, you know, admit the areas that you haven't done well in. Like that's hard to do.
100%.
But you're going to have to do that. Like you're going to have to be honest about the things that you have done, that you, that have contributed to your marriage now needing saving or fixing, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is hard
So
to
hard.
do. I mean, it's so much to unpack, like you said, because we don't like, obviously these are generic questions and every situation is so different.
Yeah.
And that's why getting into marriage, like counseling, therapy is a huge thing.
Yeah. And you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like there's no other way. You can't. Well, I've seen couples who have walked through terrible things and they've kept it to themselves and didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
It's so important that you have, first of all, you have a counselor, you have somebody you can really break down things with, but then you have community. You have people who you can surround yourself with who are going to help you make the right choices and do the right thing and move forward in your relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, here's the thing, like anything you leave in darkness just festers and gets worse, right?
yeah.
But when you
Yep.
take a light and you shine it in there and you start cleaning it out, like that's when it really gets healed.
So true.
And if people are shaming you and condemning you, like those are not your people.
Those are not your people.
You know, we've all fallen short and all have sinned and all have done things, you know, that we shouldn't have done. But at the end of the day, it's like you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you and can encourage your marriage. Now, I'm not saying like if you're in a toxic marriage, that's a different story, you know. But again, that's like specifics. It's like it's hard to know exactly.
Yeah.
What's
Speaking
going
of
on.
toxic, that's the next
Is that the
question.
next question? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Go ahead and read it.
How do I know if I'm in a toxic relationship?
Yeah. Well, I think there's signs that I think here's one of those things about toxic relationships. A lot of times the signs are loud and clear and everyone can see them. And I know I'm just like shedding, right? But there's signs that are just loud and clear and it's just hard for us to see it because we're so close to the situation.
Yeah.
Or we give the benefit of the doubt, or we're love is blind, you know, like at this, like there's things that hold us back from actually seeing that something is toxic because we're so close to it. But we just have to take a step back. And we always say this all the time, but sometimes you need to look at things from a 50,000 foot level, because when you're right here, it's hard to see every detail. But if you rise up and you look at it from a 50,000 foot level, you're able to see the whole playing field, and see how everything's lined up and where things are at and what it looks like. And so it's important for you to back up and take a step back and see what things look like from afar.
Are you chewing gum?
Yes.
It's very distracting.
You get distracted.
Okay, so I haven't been in a toxic like relationship like this, but I've been in a toxic relationship.
Yeah, in general.
You know, in general, not a spouse, but a toxic relationship. I mean, I would say here's a few things. Number one, whoever you're in a relationship with now, they should want what's best for you, right? Like when you're in a relationship with somebody, they should want what's best for you. They should want to champion you, your dreams, your ideas. But when you're in a toxic relationship, the person is going to make you feel like you're maybe crazy or like, oh, why would you do that? Or like a lot of gaslighting, a lot of manipulation, right? And everything is going to be your fault, right? Like you feel like, I don't even understand what I did wrong, but you start thinking like, I must have done something wrong because they're upset with me. And so I think a few things. One, if you're feeling like you're in a toxic relationship, you probably are in a toxic relationship, right? And then I would seek really good counsel, someone who's going to be able to look at it and not like take side, because a lot of times when we go to somebody, like say it's your best girlfriend, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm in a toxic relationship. If like a lot of time, and I'm not saying all the time, but if they're more of just like, oh my gosh, yes, you are. That's horrible. He's a horrible person. You want someone who's going to be able to look at it and go, okay, let's take a step back and
from
walk through
non-bias.
Non-bias standpoint, but still going to tell you the truth and make sure that you're safe. Now, obviously, if your safety, like physically, emotionally, all of that is at risk, like that's toxic. Or if like there's kids and that's at risk, that is toxic, period. So yeah, that's my feedback.
That's good. That's really good.
'Cause I know for me, when I was in a toxic relationship, it was with a parent and everything was always my fault.
Yeah.
Always. Like, no matter what I did, what I said, how hard I tried, it was always, I was wrong. It was my fault. And one day I just took a step back and was like, I'm never going to be able to change all of this. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I would say.
No matter what you say, no matter what you do, you're always in the wrong.
And like, you try. And that's the thing is like, get counsel. I mean, I think we say that a lot, but obviously it's important to have someone that's there who understands what's going on.
And the non-bias part is huge because like you said, it's so easy just to like, we love drama. Like humans just love
I think it's our human nature to be drawn to like the dramatic, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, especially with your friends, like it's easy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes. Instead of that, just
100%.
It's important to have something that's a little bit more non-biased.
Yeah.
So I'm even talking like parents, friends. Like it's important that obviously if everyone around you is saying, are you okay? Like something seems off, something's wrong. I would take that into account. Yeah. But it is important to have some type of non-bias and talk about the situations. And that's why we encourage you to see a counselor because you can talk about the situation and they'll be able to evaluate and help you walk through that. Bring them in, have the conversation and actually see what's going on. So, but you definitely don't want to be in a toxic relationship.
No, you don't. And like, you don't deserve that. You know what I mean? And obviously there's healing for all of that, but you don't deserve that.
Yeah. The next one is, how do I deal with my in-laws?
How do I do? Yeah.
How do I deal? So, okay. And I probably say deal wrong. Sorry. But,
it's okay. You say dill like a pickle.
Dill. Yeah.
That's another.
You're right. You're right.
Okay. One, I'm very stuffy. So if you hear me sniffling, I'm so sorry. I had a cold
last week
on the weekend.
Yeah.
But you do say one of the arguments we've had lately too, which we've been arguing a little more than normal. I think it's probably I'm PMSing. I'm just gonna be honest. So I'm like,
you just really like to pick on me.
And I've been in the house because I was sick since we've been home from Disney.
Yeah.
I haven't left the house.
We spent a lot of
Friday,
time
Saturday,
together.
Sunday, 3 straight days.
It's important for us to do things that are feeling for us alone away from our spouse.
Okay, whoa. That's not it. What I'm saying is I haven't left the house in 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh, I did walk today.
Stir crazy.
Anyway, I'm stuffy.
I say things a certain way.
Yes.
And
Dill.
She likes to bring it up and let me know.
Sometimes it's like, it's just like, funny, but he's very sensitive.
I'm sorry.
About it.
That's the way I grew up.
He's very sensitive about it.
It's the way I grew up. It's the way I learned how to say things. And this
way I say things weird.
You do say things weird.
I have an accent, allegedly.
Yeah, you have like people don't realize it, but she has a little bit of a Canadian
I
accent.
do say some words with like more of the about.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
But I don't
not
do
as strong like that, but
purpose,
it just
but
happens.
it does come out sometimes.
And I'm from another place, so
New Mexico,
and it's totally different.
Well, and I've lived in New Mexico,
and you've
Texas,
heard it. Yeah.
And then Washington.
And they all talk differently.
And so it's like I feel like I almost have like this.
You're a mix. You're a
fake
mutt.
Accent. Like it's just like sometimes a little Southern comes out depending on like what I'm talking about.
Back to how do I deal with, is that right?
I'm just trying to avoid the question.
With my in-laws. I think number one, if you're asking the question, how do I deal with my in-laws? There's obviously an issue between you and your in-laws.
I mean, maybe not.
because it shouldn't be a deal with. It should just be their family. They become family. Like, it's important to love and honor. Now, when I say honor, I'm not saying you need to do exactly what your in-laws say. That's not what I mean by honor. What I mean by honor is just showing them love and respect and mutual respect, and that's very important for you to do. At the same time, you need to make sure you set boundaries. Like you're going to live the life that you have the way that you're going to raise your kids the way that you have decided to raise your kids. Now, a lot of times in-laws will want to give their input and their thoughts, and this is how you should be doing it. Why are you doing that? And that's where you just set the boundaries and say, hey, like, I love you, but this is not something that we're coming to you about. And so if I have a question about something, I will totally ask you, but please don't like just give me unsolicited, information. Now, I don't know what your relationship is like with them. If you say something like that, you might ruin it. But at the same time, there's ways to have that conversation in a respectful manner where you can be honest and real with them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's important to do everything that you can to honor, respect, and love, and show up and, let them know that, hey, I love you, but I also love your son or your daughter the most. And I'm going to make sure that they are the number one priority above everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all really good. And like you said, like honoring your parents, like your family of origin, a few things. One, it's important that you remember that now that you're married, like your number one priority is your spouse and your family. Like now the family that you're going to be making. So that's your number one priority. And so everything needs to really stem from that. Mm-hmm. What is best for my family right here?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't show up for them, that you don't go to things, that you don't celebrate things together, but it's also really important to remember, like, this is my priority. And so then boundaries need to be set around that priority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always think like I'm a big believer in kindness is just like where to, just be kind. And do I always do that? No, but my heart is, my heart is to be kind. And I feel like I do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And so it's like, okay, how do you navigate these situations where maybe it feels a little like some tension, you know what I mean? And I'm also have a tendency to just want to like get tension done, which is very irritating to people. Mm-hmm. I do not like tension.
You don't like to beat around the bush.
No.
If there's tension, you're like, well, let's just talk about it right now.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. For me, there's just no point in it. Like, why allow tension to linger when it's unnecessary? Like, let's just get it out in the open. But I also really just believe in kindness. And so you can be kind, but you can also have very strict boundaries.
Yeah.
And how you feel led and called to lead your family, lead your kids, live your life is yours.
Yep.
And I think it's fair for parents to speak into your life, if you, especially depending on like what your relationship was with them as a child, right?
Totally.
So if you still are close to your parents, then I think, and your in-laws, whatever that looks like. I know I'm kind of like fumbling my words, but if you're close to your parents and your spouse is comfortable with how close you are with them and it's everything's fine, then I think it's great, and if they know the boundaries, if you feel a little bit like, the boundaries are struggling, then that's a conversation you need to have. I think the beautiful thing to remember, and something that I find really great to remember, is your in-laws made the person that you're in love with, right? So even no matter what kind of parents they were or whatever it looks like they raised someone that you fell in love with, that you care deeply for, that you're building a family with. And so when all else fails, like remember that, they created the person that I love, and in that I can love them.
For sure.
We both have great relationships with our parents still. We talk to our parents, we love our parents, but we realize that's not for everybody.
That's not for everybody. Yeah.
So
for sure.
Boundaries.
Ooh, I like this one. How do I spice up my marriage?
Of course you like this one.
Of course
Definitely
I do. 'Cause I'm spicy.
Buy a helmet and wear it around the house. Unless
actually,
that's your thing.
that could be your thing.
Anyway, how do you spice up your marriage? This is a great question, and it has a lot of layers.
It has a lot of layers.
Okay, so we always talk about it, but communication is going to be key in this, right? Like communication really is the start of a very great sexy life.
Yes.
Sex life is a really great way to spice up your marriage, right? Because communicating when you feel like you're seen, when you feel like your spouse sees you and you see your spouse, it's going to lead to deeper intimacy.
For sure.
Because I think we think like, oh, I'm going to spice up my marriage. I want to do all this really sexy stuff, but it's like, okay, you have to have a level of intimacy and trust and love to get to that level, right?
So true. Yep.
Right. So communication is going to be key to spicing up your marriage.
Yep.
And then what else would you say?
I mean, you gotta. I was having this conversation not too long ago with somebody, but I was just like, "Hey, what are you doing to focus on your wife when it comes to her love language, right?" And so it's one of those things like we don't think that has anything to do with it, but it has so much to do with it because, like Brittany, for instance, her love language right now in this season of life is acts of service, and so because I know that. I will make, like, especially if I'm like, hey, I'm feeling something, right? If that's happening, I will go above and beyond in her love language. And so like she'll see me, I'll be like doing dishes and making dinner and making beds or whatever it is that will help her and make her feel loved. I would recommend
doing that all the time.
Yeah, that's not the point right now. Okay. But I'm just saying I go above and beyond and try even harder to make sure that she feels loved. Obviously, you should 100% do that all the time. But I'm just saying focusing on that. Yeah. It's important to look at those things and go, how can I serve my wife in such a way where her love language is going to be filled. That way, because here's what happens. Every single time I'm doing that, like for instance, I'm making dinner and then I clean up all the dishes and I can see her from across the room just looking at me like, boy, I see you. And she actually says it out loud. She'll be like, I see you. And to me, what we're doing is it's a flirtatious way to communicate with each other in such a way. I'm doing the thing that she loves for me to do, and she looks at me, and I love for her to tell me the things, right? I love for her to be like, I see you, I want you, all that kind of stuff helps so much. Yeah. And so that's the communication aspect of doing it. And communication is more than just your words. Yeah. It's doing the things that help your spouse feel what you want them to feel.
Yes. Well, I think it can be frustrating. I have so much to unpack with this one. I mean, we should probably do more talking about this, but I think it can be frustrating for a husband because like as a wife, like I just have to exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's hard for you because it's like me just existing and doing my thing. Like you're
is a turn on.
Baby. Now I know that's not for everybody, but because that's just men have a tendency, I'm not going to say all because I know that some have, there's different, sometimes unmatched, sexual desire, like in a marriage. And we've heard a lot of that frustration, but a lot of times in most situations, the man definitely is like, hey, anytime, anywhere you say it, I'm there. Yeah. Right. And the women are a little more like, again, not in all, but in most. And so I'm like, I just have to exist. Like, right. I'm not even trying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like whatever. Sometimes I'm trying a little extra, but it's so that can be frustrating. But I believe that if men could really recognize that sex for a woman starts outside the bedroom and usually starts hours before the deed takes place. Yeah. Hours.
Well, we talk about this all the time. Women are crock pots. Men are
microwaves.
Typically microwaves.
They're like, meh, and women need some more time. And so I think that if men could capture that and think of it differently like that, so now I'm not saying like, obviously this is just, we haven't even talked about spicing it up, but this is just having it, I guess. Which for some people, they're like, hey, having it would spice it up.
This to me, this is spicing it up though, because it helps get it going. You got to start somewhere.
But building that trust, you know what I mean? Building that trust. And this comes, I think, with a lot of seeing your spouse for who they really are, loving them in seasons that are rough, because you're building trust. Yeah. Because trust and is really the foundation of a great sex life. Because if I don't trust you, I'm not going to want to reveal my whole self. Like it's very vulnerable, and so building trust, telling your spouse, what you love about them, what you desire, Yeah. And then I think it's fair to say like, hey, like, what do you want in the bedroom, and
communication.
We like, as far as spicing up, like we had a podcast episode with another couple. This is a while back. It's and they're great.
I can't even think about who you're talking about right now. That's great. Go ahead. Keep going.
Alana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember
Yep.
the book out,
Yep.
right? Okay. And we talked about sex.
Yep.
And, she had this great analogy where she was like, when you're married, it's a playground. Like,
Yes.
your sex life is a playground.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different things on there, and so you get to decide, you and your spouse, like, what do we want to do? And it's gated in. And so no one else gets to come in there. It's private, it's personal, but thinking about like, you guys can communicate like, I would like this, you would like that, what feels good, what, and I think a lot of times there's a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And
It's taboo.
And I don't know if this is just mostly like in like a Christian community or like, a purity culture type of
For sure.
maybe upbringing, where there's a lot of fear and shame that come along with it.
Yep.
But I think that, there's a lot you can
Discover.
But
that's so true. It is a playground. It's one of those places where you're with your best mate and you can just be with them and figure it out and like tell them, hey, this feels good. Could you do that? Or I desire this, I desire that. And just have those conversations. And sometimes you're going to be like, no, I'm good.
Obviously we have boundaries, very like, there's like very hard lines. You know what I mean?
Lines, yes.
Like we would never bring in anyone else, even like imagery,
nothing.
anything, like nothing.
Just
it's
us.
me and you. But I mean, we definitely, I think it evolves over time.
It does.
You trust
more
each other more,
with each
you get
other,
more comfortable. But it's conversation, having the conversation, you know what I mean? With your spouse, like, hey, like I want to try this or whatever that looks like. You know what I mean? And both of you should feel comfortable and safe always, always, and I think it's really hard sometimes for people to comprehend that God made sex to be good. Like he made it to be good. He made you to be fruitful, and wants you to experience that. And I think that's a really hard thing for people
for sure.
who, are believers to really wrap their mind around the fact that like they can enjoy their sex life, you know? But I also think that we would see a lot of marriages thrive more.
Yeah.
If that wasn't such a taboo subject,
so true.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
and another thing to help you spice up your marriage, is slow down. Like, man, sometimes it's like
man or men.
Period. Mostly men, but period. We just need to slow down and enjoy the moment, right? Mm-hmm. Just don't let it be. This is not a race. This is not a.
The race is on in here. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like wham bam, thank you ma'am. Like it just needs to be. It needs to be slow down.
Well, sometimes there's a time and a place.
Yeah. Of course, but I'm saying like
down.
if for spicing it up and helping you slow down, take your time. Yeah. Enjoy each other. And I think that's probably one of the biggest problems that people have is they just, and it's like, oh, nothing ever happens for me, and so it's
I think
important.
too, like, don't be selfish. Like, I think, a lot of times,
don't
like,
be selfish.
Just our human nature, we want to fulfill our own desire.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
So it's like, really think about like, it's another way of serving. Now, I know that people are like, what? You're talking about sex and now you're talking about serving? Like, I don't understand. What is this?
It goes together.
It's a way of serving. Like, how can I serve your needs?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just, again, that's why it's about building the communication, the trust, that foundation, because then it spills in to the bedroom.
Yeah.
And knowing that like, that's you and your spouse, and that's like, you can cultivate a great sex
for sure. And it's depends on who you are as a couple, right? And so there's obviously so many things you can do and bring in and do whatever, but at the same time it's important that you know each other very well and you're communicating very strongly with each other. And when I say communicate, I mean like literally being like, hey, I need you like really bad right now. And well, what am I, a lot of times it's like, I really need you right now. Well, I mean, I'm busy and I'm this and I'm that. And it's easy to come up with all the reasons why we shouldn't spice up our marriage, right? But instead, it's just like, okay, I hear you. Like, I think it's important to really think and go,
acknowledge
I
how they're
hear
feeling.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me more about it. Like, have the conversation.
Yeah.
It really is a conversation at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like, if you want to spice it up, have that conversation. If you have a desire and like, hey, I would love for you to wear lingerie, like that would really do it for me. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go get some lingerie and put it on and wear it for him, and do whatever it is. Like, just have fun and enjoy
as long
it.
as
Whatever
you're comfortable. You know what I mean?
Obviously you're comfortable, but
the thing, yeah.
But it's communication, expressing, and like we said, obviously there's gonna be things we're gonna be like, yeah, no, that's never happening. But at the same time, you'll never know unless you try or ask.
Right. Well, and I think some people maybe listening, they're like, okay, you just don't understand. I could never, do that, or the past hurt I've had, or things.
Sure.
And it's like, I think to be able to have this, like spicing up your love life, you need to be healed from something that maybe was like trauma or traumatic. You know what I mean? And one, you need to be healed as the person that it happened to or that walked through it. And then your spouse needs to have the grace and the patience to allow you to walk through it.
Yeah, so true.
Because it can be really triggering. Like you're being very vulnerable. I mean, it's really a very high level of vulnerability, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's great. We can dive so deep into these things, but
so many things. It's super, I don't know if it's super annoying or super funny or what it is, but the whole time we're doing, not the whole time, but a lot of times when I'm talking, all I can hear are songs that like spice up your life. Every time we're talking about one of these things.
So true.
ADHD?
Is that you're talking? Is it like Spice Girls? Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I figured that much.
Just like we'll say something and then a song in my head is playing. So then sometimes I have a hard time because the song is playing.
That's for sure your ADHD.
In my head.
I mean, it happens to me too, but I don't get distracted by it. I love you so much, and it's so fun.
I just want to start dancing, but I'm like, it's not the time.
Let's dance.
It's not the time.
Let's dance. Well, we're so grateful for every single one of you who join in with us as we talk about all these things. It's so fun to just even see what the top Googled questions are about marriage and why people are asking them. And it really helps us really think through these things. And if you have any questions, you have things that you're going through, shoot us a DM, put it in the comment. If you're not comfortable, just send us a DM so that it's just between us privately. We get them all the time. A lot of times they're deep and they're tough to answer because we're not in your situation. We're not your counselor, but we'll do our best to do whatever we can to help you in any way possible. But make sure you shoot that to us. We'll be excited to read them. We want to hear from you. If you have any friends who have a marriage and they need some help, send them our way. And we would love to be a part of their marriage too. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of Young, Dumb, and In Love. We'll see you next week.